Naseema McElroy is the founder of Financially Intentional, a platform about personal finance and living life intentionally. She's a published author, and she knows what she's talking about because her own personal experience taking control of her finances enabled her to overcome bankruptcy, divorce, and she's also broken the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. Naseema is passionate about teaching others how to achieve financial independence. And outside of encouraging people to get their financial act together, Naseema is also a mother of 3 beautiful girls and a labor and delivery nurse. Now, she was making 6 figures a year, but she still struggled with money. So she finally realized she could not out-earn her financial ignorance, and she knew she had to make changes. She shifted her mindset around money, being consistent and intentional, and I know she spent a lot of time learning as much as she could about money, and has paid off $1 million in debt and has grown a 6-figure net worth in 3 years without depriving herself or her family. Naseema has been a guest with us on the Find Me the Money podcast before, so we're happy to have her back talking today about igniting financial success post-divorce. Naseema, welcome.
Hey, happy to be here.
Whew, that's a lot to talk about. You have a lot going on. And,
Definitely.
I want people to know that you have experienced divorce firsthand, not just divorce, but also a cohabitation situation, breakup. And so you've got a lot of experience when it comes to finances, divorce, and really getting it together after that, right?
Definitely. And what's important to highlight about that is that because of my cohabitation, I was under a domestic partnership. And what I didn't realize when I signed up for my domestic partnership was it's the same kind of process as going through a divorce. So technically, I've been divorced twice.
Right. Right. People think, well, we didn't get married, so it's not a big deal. But if you entered into certain types of agreements, you can be subject to the same laws and still have to go through that same process.
Hmm.
Whew. So I want to start off by asking you what you mean when you talk about financial independence, because that's what we're going to talk about today. And I know that you have a different take on financial independence than a lot of people. Most people think, well, if I'm financially independent, it means I'm going to retire at a really young age and right off into the sunset. But you want to approach it a little bit differently, don't you?
Yeah, financial independence to me is making work optional. And I think that's super important because, especially for women, especially women of color, sometimes we have to opt into situations in the workforce that are not optimal for us. And having the ability to give the deuces is what financial independence is to me.
Right. And so I would love if you're willing to share what you have done in your personal life in terms of, I think you call them mini retirements, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like wrapping up one that I'm having right now. This one was attached of course to me having a baby. So I recently delivered my baby and had, in the state of California, you're supposed to go back in 2 months, and I was able to push that to about 7 months, but that was just because of the financial runway that I had built out years in advance. But I think it's important to understand like what you really need to actually live. And once you understand that number, you say, okay, like I can make this amount of money in these different ways and don't necessarily have to um, go to work. And I encourage people to do that because really it's not like retirement is not like this thing, this goal, because like it's like the light at the end of the tunnel. Retirement should be like you taking really little breaks at a time so that you can enjoy the work that you're doing. I think a lot of people don't necessarily dislike work, they just are burnt out or tired. And once they are able to be refreshed, they can enjoy the things that they're doing to bring in income.
Well, financial independence is a lot about creating choices for yourself so that
Hmm.
work can be optional, or maybe for a period of time you're cutting back to part time work, or maybe
Yeah.
you're stepping out of your chosen career for a year and you're going to go be a barista at a coffee shop, right?
Yes.
If you have your
Yes.
savings and you have your investments, you may have the ability to do that. Not just savings and investments. I know you talk too about like finding living situations where you're able to make extra money there and things like that, right?
Yes. Yes. So your living expenses are going to be one of your highest expenses. And any way that you can limit that, you're going to help yourself out a lot. Like I always have a room available for a travel nurse to stay at my house, and I have an extra vehicle. So I always rent that out when I'm not using it. So it decreases those expenses so that I can divert my money into things that are um, you know, giving me financial freedom in the end. So investment, savings, things like that.
Well, and also bringing you joy and allowing you to travel and
Yes,
do fun things like that.
exactly.
Okay, so financial success after divorce. We're talking
Mhm.
about financial independence, but divorce is a really tough time for most women. A lot of them come out with a standard of living that is much lower than they're used to. They're really worried about making ends meet. I mean, there might be someone listening to this who doesn't even know if she'll have enough for groceries next month. So, where is she going to start with her finances?
I think it's really, really hard because there's so many things emotionally going on during a divorce that it's okay to feel those feelings. However, you have to know that there is hope. There is, you know, it'll be okay. If I can overcome it, you can overcome it. And so, what we have to do in those moments, instead of just shutting ourselves off, is empower ourselves by saying, "What can we do in this moment to get ourselves back on track?" And that starts, and it's the little things. It doesn't have to be something big. There's little things that you can do every single day. One of the things that are my favorite things to do that doesn't cost anything is to change my circle of influence. And that's really important, especially right now, at that point in time when people are losing maybe half of their friend group, half of their family, to kind of change who you're surrounded with. So I would say start a whole new social media account, like a whole new Instagram account, and start following the people that you aspire to, who brings you joy, and only look at those posts. Then you assess what your financial situation is. Do you need to be bringing in more income? What are some things that you can do in the short term to bring you more income? Can you just ask for a raise? Because so many people just don't do that, and that can bring in income. But just look at those things, and then also just sitting down, and like I said, really hone in on what you need to live, and then start seeing what you can do to get to that point and then beyond, so then you can start building for investments and building savings and investments. So
Well, budgeting is a really important part of that, right? And the
mhm.
B word is never fun for people. It
It's fun for
off
me.
it's fun for me too. I look at my budget nearly every day. I really want to know
Yes.
what I'm spending, where I am on that. But I think for me, why people are so against budgets is because it feels like deprivation, and it feels like
Mhm.
someone's always out there saying, cut, 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 cut. And yes, when we're budgeting, we do want to be more intentional about what we spend, but it doesn't just have to be about cutting, right?
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. It's all about intentionality, right? And the reason why I love looking at my budget is because my budget is telling me that I can spend money on the things that I enjoy. So I just flip the narrative, right? I flip the script on it. I'm just like, look, my budget is ensuring that the things that bring me joy, I have the available funds for. And the things that we don't necessarily need, I don't spend money on that because I'm not going to remember how I spent that money. But when I spend my money on the things that light up my life, I'm always going to remember that.
I love it. So, getting more educated about finances can really help when we're trying to recover financially after the divorce, right? Because you
Mhm.
certainly did that.
Yeah, and I like really had to sit down and be like, okay, I've invested so many years in educating myself to be a nurse, to be an administrator, all these kind of things. I need to educate myself on what real wealth is. And so it wasn't like I took a class or anything, even though I wish I could have took a shortcut and had a coach, but I didn't just know anybody that looked like me that was out there doing these things. And so I kind of did it myself and pieced it together by listening to audiobooks, podcasts, while I was driving to work, while I was doing chores around the house, while I was running errands. Those are the things and the messages and the people I chose to surround myself with. But it's one thing to just listen, but I took actionable steps every time I heard that. And I also shared it back. So I was teaching through my platform. That's how my platform was built. I was teaching back the things that I learned. And that's one of the best ways to solidify a lesson is to be able to teach it back to someone. So that's how I did it.
I love that. That was not something in my interview outline, but I did that when I was teaching at the college level. I would teach a
Hmm.
concept and then I would have a student teach it back to me and see what
Very
they
smart.
remembered. That's
Very
wonderful.
smart.
I love
Hmm.
it. Okay, we mentioned that divorce is a really emotional time and it's really difficult for those reasons. How does emotional well being play into our financial decision making?
Everything we do when it comes to money is emotional. And I think sometimes we beat ourselves up because we think it's like, this is math, this is just numbers, but it's not. Money is energy, right? And if our energy is off, then our money is going to be off. So the way to change that is to shift your energy around money. But a lot of that has to come with making sure that you're right on the inside. And so those two things go hand in hand. And once you understand that, you can work to kind of change some of those dynamics between like the lack and not having enough. So yeah,
Well,
it's yeah.
how many of us have certainly engaged in emotional spending? You had a down day and you go online and do some shopping to feel better, right? Of course.
Of course, of course. And you don't remember what you buy or what you bought or what
Right.
you needed it for and you
Right.
don't use it.
Okay. So, for the woman who is trying to rebuild after divorce, what can she be thinking about in terms of career and educational opportunities for herself?
I think right now there's just so many opportunities. And I think what but it's so much many opportunities can be overwhelming. It
Yes.
start where you are. What are you really good at? Not what you think you're really good at, but maybe ask one of your friends, like, what is something that you think I'm really good at? And just try to do those kind of things. If it's about building more income, if it's about getting education, what are you really interested in and passionate about that you can learn more about? It's just and I would say there's so many free resources. Delve into those before you invest heavily on, things that cost a lot that you might not be happy with in the long run. But it's just so much to explore. So I'm just saying that to say there's hope. There's so many opportunities. There's limitless potential, but you just have to know what's possible. So again, it's about the circle of influence you have, so you know what's out there for you.
I like that you said to start with free things and dig into that first because it's so
Hmm.
easy to spend thousands of dollars on a certificate program or something like that. You think you're going to become a computer programmer someday and you put all this money down and then realize once you get a few weeks into it that you don't even like it. Much better to
Yes.
try the free resources first. And also, I'd like to say, do a lot of research about the job opportunities that are available, how much you would really
Yes.
get paid in this.
Yes.
Is there a trajectory where you have to get entry level and for a period of time? And just make sure you know those things. And if it works for you, whatever that is, great. But make sure you know it before you're spending money on some education.
Exactly. Do a little time investment first.
Right. Okay, so thinking about post divorce financial planning, I know
Hmm.
you have some thoughts on resources and professionals who provide the best guidance. Because as you mentioned, there's a ton of stuff out there. You can Google anything, you can find all sorts of information, but how are we going to find the best resources?
I think you have to know exactly what your goals are so you can know who to go to. There's a lot of people out there that may not necessarily have your best interest at heart. So it might be if you don't have a lot of financial assets available to you. So if you broke, you would want to delve into free resources that are out there. If you have a little bit of money and you have some time and want to take some actions, you might want to work with a coach or do a fee only fiduciary advisor. So, a financial planner that has your best interest at heart, that is just going to charge you a flat fee to help you plan out your expenses. So, it's a do it yourself. it's the maybe get a coach, a money coach. Like I have coaching, but I'm not a financial professional. And then there's a fee only fiduciaries. If you do have, and it's only you typically a few $100s that you need to spend on these sessions. But like those are the levels of financial support that I advise people to seek out, to get started. And I just think it doesn't matter which one you start at, but just start is the key.
And take a look at your options. So, if you do want to go
Mhm.
with one of the paid options, spend a little bit of time looking at different coaches or different financial advisors before you choose one. I think what I see in the work that I do is people are too quick to go talk to someone and hire them right away, whether that's the divorce attorney, whether that's a financial advisor. It's like, well, that person was nice. It seemed fine. I'm going to hire them. Well, guess what? If you had talked to two more people and now you had something to compare them to, you might have found someone else that you were better aligned with.
Exactly. You vet people like you vet a partner, right? Like you
Mhm.
have to be able to vibe with someone. They have to have the ability to understand you. There's personal finance advisors and coaches for everyone out there. And so if you find somebody that you can gel with, it's more likely that they'll be able to meet your unique financial needs.
I love that. How can women make sure that they are protecting their financial interests during the divorce process?
I think that's really, really tricky. But I think knowing, like working with someone like you, or knowing what's available to them, like it's so hard, you got to know your state laws. It's just so many things that we have to look out for in this process. I would say, like, it's better to be in a community like yours, or reach out to someone who can help you through this process, because like I said, the emotions will cloud your judgment, and sometimes you overlook things that could cost you a lot of money in the long run. So, again, it's a time where we want to kind of close in and not um, really talk or share or address the issues at hand. But this is one of the most important times for you to kind of get your head out of the sand and look at the numbers and understand, like, this is not a time to leave it to somebody else. Understand your numbers, work with somebody to help protect you, help you protect your money, and just stay knowledgeable on what you want to do in the future, so that you can make sure that your financial interests are protected through the process. But yeah, you can't do it by by burying your head in the sand.
Well, you give the exact advice that I give. It's two things to protect
Hmm.
yourself in divorce. It's information. You have to have all the information about your money before you can make a decision about whether a settlement is good or bad. And having the right professionals help you. And that doesn't just mean the divorce attorney. It might be a financial advisor, it might be a
Hmm.
coach of some sort, it might be a forensic accountant like me. Having those right people to help you understand the information before you make decisions. So I'm all on board with the advice that you had because it mirrors mine.
Yes.
Okay. So the woman who is thinking about, I want to achieve financial independence after my divorce, what kind of investment strategies do you have for her?
You know what? I like my investments boring, okay? Like that's why I call them like hella simple. I think it's when it comes to investing, because a lot of us aren't innately taught about investing. It's like this shiny object syndrome that we have. But that's not like really what investing is about. Investing is continuously putting money away, and just letting it grow, setting it and forgetting it. And so, first of all, again, I start with where what women have right now. Do you have retirement accounts at your old jobs? Make sure you roll those over and take control of that. Understand where your money is invested. Um, if you're getting retirement assets from your divorce, understand where that's going. But just do those things, like basic everyday things right now. Like, are you investing right now where you're currently employed? Or are you putting away money in your Roth IRA on your own or from your business? How is that funding your retirement? Like, start and do an assessment of where you're at, and then you can kind of look at where you want to go. But like I said, investments should be simple. I just invest in simple index funds, meaning that I typically own everything that's in the market. I don't try to beat the market, and I continuously invest. I have a fixed amount that I invest every month, and that is never going to change. And, so I just tell people take that approach. Just make it simple, make it automated, make it so that it's happening in the background of your life so you don't have to worry about it.
This is about the most jam-packed 20 minutes that I have done so far. This is fantastic. I know that you have a special free resource for our listeners, don't you?
I do. Like, a lot of people are just like, where do I get started? That's the number one question I get asked. So I just created a get started guide that has a lot of resources. And, you can check that out on my website.
I know that that is an awesome resource, as is all of the content that you share on social media. People absolutely need to be following you on Instagram at Financially Intentional. Naseema, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom today. It is always fun talking to you.
It's always a pleasure, Tracy.